In today's tutorial, we'll be looking at how to use variables inside Visual Basic. The first thing you need to do is launch Visual Studio 2019 and then select the Create a New Project button. And then you might have several options depending on what libraries you've got installed here. The one you need to look for is the Windows Form.app.net framework for Visual Basic. You can either search it through here, or if you've used it before, just double click on here. Make sure you give your project a meaningful name. So I'm going to call mine variables. And also make sure you save it to a location where you can remember what's stored at. And once you've done that, just click the Create button. Okay, so you've got your standard view here in terms of the Windows form. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a button, and when we click on the button, I'm going to show you different types of variables that you can use inside Visual Basic. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have this toolbox open. It may look like this for you, so make sure you select toolbox, then just pin it. That way it's always there for use. Then look for the button option. Then we draw the button on the screen. Okay, as I said, you can change the properties through here. So we're going to change that button 1 under appearance to be submit. So you go down to text here, double click on that, we'll change that to submit. It's always good just to make sure that your form is a little bit more presentable. So we might just change that form 1 up there too, up to change that. So make sure you left click on that. We're also going to change that to variables. Okay, so what we do is we double click on the submit button, and we've got the code view. So there's two aspects to using variables. One is you have to declare the variable, and the second is actually using it. So if you're not aware what variables are, a variable is where you store or manipulate a single data type. The most common variables we've got are string and integer, which we'll be working with today. So the way we declare a variable inside our code is we go dim. And now every variable has to have a name depending on what it does. So we're just going to call this one name. Okay, you can call it anything you want to, and then you then say as, and then what type of data type. So we're going to do something called a string. So a string basically is anything that takes any text, characters, numbers, special characters, anything at all. One of the most common forms of variables. Now you can just declare it like that and then use it later on, or you can do something called hard coding. So hard coding is where we store a value directly into that variable. So here we're going to store the text variables are cool. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we want to present that to the message box. So the way we do that is we go message box dot show, and remember this will present to the screen we want. So if we just have no double quotes and then write in name, what will happen is it's going to present the contents of this name variable directly to a message box. So if I press the play or F5 and then select submit, it says variables are cool. Okay, so what we can do is we might modify our form a bit so we can show both the strings versus integers. So we'll draw a second button in. What we'll do is we're just going to rename this first button to call submit string. So you know it's our string variable. And then we're going to call our second button here submit integer. So go down to text here, change button 2, submit integer. And then as you did before, we can double click on the button. You can see it creates its own little subclass. We'll be going through sub-procedures and functions in later tutorials, but at the moment you don't need to know anything apart from it's just a little wrapper where you can put code into. So if you want to save some time, we can copy and paste the above code, and then we'll just paste it into here. Now, we're going to be looking at is called integers. So if we change string to an integer, okay, an integer is a whole number, positive or negative. So let's just put in a random number in there. And then we might want to change that because you can't have two variables of the same name, otherwise you'll have a conflict. So we're going to call this number, and then we're going to then display the number. So then what we do is we press play. We now have our submit string, which says variables are cool. And we have our submit integer, which says 33. Now, one final thing before we finish off this tutorial is we're going to show you how you can apply text around variables. So the way you do that is anything inside a message box that is in double quotes or single quotes is going to be considered text to screen. And I'm going to write down your name here. Right. So we'll just write down anything. So we say why and then so we're going to say why are variables cool. So what we need to do here is we need to add it, concatenate it. So we use end inside Visual Basic. So what will happen here is that you'll say YR plain text, and then it will go add contents of name. So we can actually even change the contents if we want to. Why are you so cool? And then same thing down here. You might say my favorite number is, and then put the ampersand in or the end. And then if we press play or start now, you can see if I hit submit string, you'll say why are you so cool, because it's concatenated or added the why are you to the contents of the variable string. And if I hit the submit integer button, it will add the text and it'll add it to the contents of the integer string. So my advice to you is to play around with the different types of variables possible. The way you can do this is basically Visual Basic will give you a whole list of things you can change. Otherwise, you could play around with the different types of strings and integers, different combinations of text. And that's how you do variables. Thank you for watching this tutorial.